The URC is ruling the domestic rugby scene. A major premiership game draws a crowd of around 20,000. A top 14 team draws around 25,000 fans. The Stormers versus the Bulls draws a crowd of 40,000, double that of the other leagues. What's the reason? This, my friends, is the impact of South Africa joining the URC. How can this be that an isolated decision led to a major impact on the domestic rugby scene? So join us as we take a deep dive into the impact of South Africa on the URC. Now let's rewind to post-pandemic, where it all began. You see, South Africa had long been a member of the premier professional domestic rugby competition in the world, Super Rugby, along with Australia and New Zealand, and at a later point Argentina and Japan. South Africa formed an integral part of Super Rugby from 1996 until 2019. But before we get into this any further, if you like this content, please like and subscribe, it really helps our channel. The domestic rivalries were fierce and famous as the Bulls went head to head with the Brummies and the Crusaders with the Lions. This was all set to change, however, when it was reported that New Zealand Rugby had taken a unilateral decision to organise its own domestic competition and Trans-Tasman competition for the following year. In hindsight, it's clear to see New Zealand Rugby erred, as did Australia.
You know, the fact that there was supposed to be a super round, there was supposed to be big crowds, the upper tier was empty. I'm assuming they tried to sell tickets for it.
A decision was made by South African Rugby to sever ties with Super Rugby and strike a deal with a formerly named Pro 14.
We were all very excited about the South African teams coming into the competition. It's exactly what we needed to get that level of competitiveness.
The Pro 14, competitive as it was, didn't have the same draw to it as other competitions in Europe, such as France Top 14 and the English Premiership prior to 2021. Most seasons appeared somewhat predictable, with either Munster or Leinster tabbed as favourites, but that was about to change. In came heavyweights of South African rugby, the Stormers, Sharks, Bulls and Lions, and instantly the United Rugby Championship was transformed into a credible rugby comp with 16 teams. With the addition of these teams came an immediate rise in the competitiveness of the URC. New rivalries forged: Leinster v Stormers, Munster v Sharks, newly crowned champs Glasgow, Dragons from Wales and Italian side Zebre. There were some that thought the southern domestic sides were superior to those of the north. This would be put to the test. In the 3 years in which South Africa has been a part of the URC, incredibly, they made up for 4 of the 6 finalists, with the Stormers being the only side to get their hands on the trophy thus far. Again, incredibly, in the 2021-22 finals, just their first year in the league, it was an all South African affair, with the Stormers and the Bulls locking horns. The following year, the defending champs again reached the finals, only to be defeated by the strong Irish unit, Munster. The 2023-24 final was contested by the Glasgow Warriors and the Bulls, which was held in South Africa. At one time, the Bulls were up by 13-0, a tight seesaw affair with the scores at 16-14 at around the 50th minute, with a powerful Glasgow rolling maul, with even the Glasgow backline players driving the maul as well. The Bulls in turn had an opportunity to take the game at the final whistle, with a 5-metre line-out and ensuing drive only to be declared held up by the ref. While no one argues that the addition of the powerful world champion South African teams has added character and increased competitiveness of the rugby game in this part of the world, they didn't just come and have it all their way, dominating everything. The northern teams rose to the challenge and welcomed this new era for the URC. Although northern fans are saying, South African teams have made the URC much more interesting, great atmospheres and with their own fan base as well. The South African teams didn't only bring their Rugby World Cup name tag with them, but famous players and personalities as well. More and more fans engage and connect with the game. They've added world-class players, with Oxenchair being ranked number 1 in the URC, with fellow prop Vincent Koch and Lok Eben Etzebeth making up 3 of the top 5 players who are part of the fearful South African bomb squad, with Thomas Williams, Cardiff scrum half, and Dan Sheehan from Leinster rounding out the top 5. That's the impact of South Africa on the URC. All teams are benefiting, both through high-level competition and increased viewership. Several pundits have noted that both the European and South African sides are happy with this new alliance. Also, the upcoming Lions Tour in 2025 to Australia means that players from Ireland, Scotland and Wales are motivated to play at their best in the hope of making the British and Irish Lions team. This has had a knock-on effect into the international rugby standard of these Six Nations superpowers, with their players experiencing domestic rugby which has a test match feel to it week in and week out. The Bulls Warriors finals are a testament to this. What's been Super Rugby's loss has without a doubt been the URC's gain. While the new rivalries of the URC feel fresh and exciting, the repetitive nature of Super Rugby following the loss of the South African sides has led to a decline in the standard of play. Instead of the must-see clashes of the past, Super Rugby now seems a stale product and far removed from its former glory. This is not only an issue for the domestic side of things, instead it's a much bigger problem for the All Blacks and the Wallabies, recently evidenced by their abysmal track record, both suffering demoralising losses to the mighty Boks not only once but twice each. The impact of South Africa's move goes far beyond Super Rugby and the URC. Upon joining the URC, they've now become a part of the Champions Cup. This in turn results them in facing off with the financial juggernauts, Toulouse and Montpellier. What impact does this have? Well, a huge improvement in the quality of rugby for all concerned, while the nations involved in Super Rugby can only look in envy. Both the Champions Cup and URC have seen a massive step up in competition. While Super Rugby fan numbers are dwindling, the URC continues to attract capacity crowds, with the Stormers drawing close to 40,000 spectators a week for their home games. The URC is now at the point where it's drawing the highest viewership out of any of the top domestic competitions worldwide. During the 2022-2023 season, it was reported that viewership numbers exceeded 37 million during the campaign. Again, the impact of South Africa on the URC is clear for all to see. This adds a very important aspect in modern professional rugby, and that's money.
It would sort of unite all these powerhouse rugby nations. We've got loads of great brands. You know, we were introducing the Sharks, the Stormers, the Lions, the Bulls. These are like international brands of rugby. With actually the largest fan bases across the board.
South Africa's inclusion into the URC has injected investment and a much needed financial gain for all involved. The URC's TV deal is now reportedly worth £20 million more than the English Premierships, with many of the Premiership sides struggling from a financial standpoint. It wasn't too long ago that South African domestic sides were on the brink of financial ruin themselves. However, the involvement in the URC seems to have rejuvenated them. It has recently been reported that the 4 sides which partake in the URC will receive a 50% share of the millions earned by SA Rugby's due to the URC's broadcasting rights and sponsorships. So, not only did the URC benefit from South Africa's inclusion, but South Africa are also beneficiaries from joining the URC. This financial boost will mean that the teams can attract better talent, improve facilities, and continue to compete at the highest level of domestic rugby. It appears that the gamble to join the URC has paid off tenfold, and it will certainly help teams such as Edinburgh and the Ospreys as well.
The South Africans were brought in with the sole purpose, I think, to grow this game globally. We've achieved that. To strengthen the URC, that's also been achieved.
The new URC has provided some spectacular domestic rugby for all to see, with it being a birthplace of new and upcoming stars such as South African scrum half Sasha Feinberg Mumamuzulu, with some calling him the Ronaldo of rugby. Use your imagination. Whether you're a die-hard fan of any of the franchises concerned or simply a neutral who loves to watch high-quality rugby, you won't be disappointed tuning into a URC game. With the current domestic season starting, we'd love to hear your thoughts on the formation of the URC, the downfall of Super Rugby, and what changes should or could be made for both. Did South Africa make the right decision to make the switch? And has their impact been a positive one? Let us know. And our comment section is fast becoming a community to discuss all things rugby. As always, thanks for watching. Please leave a comment and remember to subscribe and help us bring you more great rugby content. Stay tuned.